Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where it's about dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Republic of Sarah. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we are dealing with the aftermath of the big reveal. Corinne's trying to fix things with Adam, but Adam hasn't come back home since. But he comes back home at the end, and obviously, he's still trying to sort out his feelings about everything that happened. He's trying to figure out, why did Corinne do it? She was like, it was just a mistake. It happened. But he's like, no, it doesn't just happen. Why did it happen? And until then, it's like, maybe he needs time to figure out, can they move past this? And he's like, you need to take time as well to figure it out. And she's like, I know we can move past this. So they're in this very complicated situation. Obviously, Sarah's spending time with her dad. And lo and behold, who comes home but mom? Like 2 weeks early as a bit of a surprise because they think that she's ready, so they let her come home. So it is this awkward thing of like, right, we knew this confrontation was going to happen eventually. What's interesting though is, aside from that scene, they don't have a scene together throughout the rest of the episode. She's avoiding him like to play. I mean, to be fair, he was out of her life, not just Sarah and Danny's, but even hers. Like, you were gone. And that probably, doesn't justify all that she's done, but it was an issue, but it grew even more because of that. But I don't think she's going to blame him for that. I think it's more so like, right, you abandoned me, you abandoned your children. That's the biggest issue. It's not like I don't think with everything that she's going through with rehab, I don't think she's going to be like, oh, it's your fault, I fell apart like I did. Maybe on some level, but I think it isn't about putting the blame on anyone else. It's about accepting your own mistakes. So it is that awkward thing of like, right, I'm fixing myself and I come home and you're all chummy with your dad, and it's like, Sarah's like, yeah, it is kind of weird. He is trying to be better. And she's like, at the very least, her mom is like, I recognize that, because she herself is trying to be better. So it's like, right, how can I ask my children to give me that latitude if I'm not willing to let them do the same thing for their father, And she even apologizes to Sarah. It's like, I hurt you so much. I should have been protecting you, but I didn't. I should have been there for you rather than you having to be there for me. So I do apologize. So, and even Sarah talks to Danny about it, because it's like, right, I gotta let you know, mom's back. But like her other stints of like sobriety, this feels different. But Danny's like, yeah, like whatever. Like mom, literally, the movie Inception might as well be a biopic for her, because she's so good at just manipulating people and just getting them to kind of go along with her way of things. So, and Sarah's like, I'm not here to try and convince you that mom's better in no shape or form. I just wanted you to know, because she didn't want Danny she didn't want their mom to just randomly pop up on Danny and that be an issue. It's like, I wanted you to be prepared. I want you to know that she's in town. So obviously with all of this too, he's dealing with the whole Corinne situation as well, because he even says it, like, he wishes things were different. Like he wants Corinne and Adam to be okay. Yes, he loves and cares for Corinne. He still always has and always will, but it is the thing of, I don't want to implode her life, because it's like, no, Adam's not a bad guy. He's a good dude, and, she's happy, and I wasn't trying to blow up her happiness. That was the whole thing of, like, we wanted to avoid this in the first place. It's just like, he can't help feeling the way he feels. And kind of speaking on that, it's the whole situation of AJ and Sarah sitting down. Well, first and foremost, I love the whole conversation about, like, right, Sarah's got to go through her own trials and tribulations because she's dealing with the Weston thing, because Weston confronts her about, right, I know that your dad is the whistleblower, and it's like, right, now it's like, you would have never found out about my dad if we weren't dating, because you got close enough to me to figure all that out. But now it's a complicated thing where Weston wants to tell the truth, which is like, yes, it is a big story for me, but it is also your dad's story. Like, it can be swept under the rug. Like, all the people, all the parties responsible could get away with it and do it again if they don't have a cooperating witness. So your dad's like putting it out there is one thing, but if he comes forward, he could save so many lives. And so that puts her in a very compromising position. Because I even love AJ being like, whoa, the guy, your boyfriend wants to snitch on your dad and you let him stay in your room. It's like, yeah, but it's also like, he's right. She's like, well, if that's the case, then why are you down here? It's like, because he's snitching on my dad. And, but then Corinne comes over, and I really like that heart-to-heart they all had too, because I think it's interesting, because I figured AJ would have a certain perspective, because she literally went through this with the whole William and Alexis situation. And obviously Corinne tried to be like, no, like my situation with Adam is different. She's like, is it? She's like, I know I'm irresistible, but Alexis' affair with me was more than just about me. It was about certain things she wasn't getting in her own marriage that she sought elsewhere. Like maybe she wasn't getting the emotional support or like love in certain regards. Like there was, that's why people kind of cheat, because if they cheat, it isn't just for like some random reason. It's like there's something you're not getting out of your relationship that you are getting elsewhere, and I thought that was like I said, I think that's a perspective only Alexis could have, having gone through what she went through. But then Sarah was like, no, she loves Adam. He's her world. Like, what was happening with Danny was a mistake. But then Corinne finally admits, like, no, like, she doesn't love Danny. It's like, I do love Danny, but I also love Adam too. And to me, that was the important thing too, is like Sarah, that was always Sarah saying it was a big mistake. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. Yes, it was a mistake, but she chalked it up. Like she never took time to really look at it as like, oh, like what you have with Danny is like, it's a childhood fling. It's like, no, they were engaged. You saw the aftermath. Like, you can't just chalk it up to being, like, considering what they had, considering how Corinne fell apart after he left. Like, you can't just chalk that up to just being a mistake. She doesn't love, because I guess in her mind, it's like, it's been 6 years, she's moved on, she's happy, she's in love, like, but you're still always going to have a special place in your heart for that first person you ever loved. I mean, because it's a different circumstances, but would you say the same thing to Grover, like years down the line of like, oh, like he always loved Patience, like, well, that would never fade away. This is a different circumstances because the person you love is not only alive, they're back in your life. So it adds a layer of just complications, because like, once again, it's not okay to cheat on your significant other, but it is a complicated, like humans, we're flawed, like, your heart kind of, sometimes your heart gets the best of you. And just in that moment, her and Danny, it's like he brought up like she finally got the closure she needed all these years later of like why he left, and it's just like those feelings came flooding forward, and they just got caught up in the moment. Like I said, that doesn't justify it, but I'm not going to like blame her in this situation. It's complicated, especially when Adam ends up like, because Sarah's like, don't go near them, stay away from them, and Danny wasn't even trying to get near her, either one of them. But in that moment, like, they bumped into Adam. Adam said a line I thought was interesting, where he was like, "Oh, you're sorry, you're not really now, but you will be." I'm like, the hell does that mean? Is he gonna, like, I immediately chalked it up, is he gonna try and get Danny fired from his job or something like that? I don't know what it is. It just seemed like, I took that as a threat of like, it could have just been like, oh, I'm gonna beat you up type of thing, but it just, because Sarah's like, hitting him is not gonna isn't gonna change anything. It's just gonna get you arrested. She's like, it's not gonna make you feel better. Trust me. She did it in episode 1. Adam took that as like, oh, of course you're going to defend that douchebag brother of yours. It's like, out of anyone, she has the most complicated relationship with her brother, but at the same time, they have healed, so you can make the argument, it's like, right, that's your brother, you're always going to stick up with him. But she's like, no, I'm in this for Corinne. I want you two to work it out. But it's like, it's not just Danny he's lashing out at. It's Sarah as well, because he's like, just the Cooper family in general, he blames them. Just because Sarah is a constant reminder of what Danny and Corinne did. And so, ultimately, he gives Corinne an ultimatum. Not only avoid Danny, which she's like, fine, I was going to do that anyway, but also stay away from Sarah. It's like, what? But she's my best friend. And it's like, it is this complicated thing of like, it is kind of messed up for you to dictate who you can be friends with. It's not like Sarah's the one she slept with, but it's just like, you destroyed everything we built for like 15 minutes on a wood floor or whatever. So it's like, that's also the thing of like, she doesn't have a leg to stand on in this argument, because it's like, right, I am the one that cheated, and you need whatever you need for us to move forward with this. And it's a complicated thing, because I think there's a part of me that's like, man, I wish he didn't give her that ultimatum, because you're telling her to give up her best friend, someone who was there for so long. But also, this is also spiraling. This is also like, right, like, he has those rights because he was the one wronged in this situation. It's like, Corinne is the one that cheated. Like, his partner, his love, his wife, the mother of his child. I still put quotes around that just because I'm like, I don't know, man. There's still some part of me that has a hard time believing that, but it's like, no, maybe just straight up Adam is. I just felt like Sarah was lying, but I still can't get rid of a twinge of like somewhere in my brain. I still feel like I'm like 95% on board with like, yeah, that's his, Josh is his, but then there's still like 5%. I'm like, I don't know, man. I still feel like Sarah lied just to keep their relationship going. But regardless, so like I said, he's the wronged party in this, and whatever he needs to heal, he needs to heal, because it's understandable. It's like, right, it would have just been a constant reminder, but it's not like, but at the same time, I do also know it is coming from an insecurity, because he said it himself, like their entire relationship, like when they got together, he was under the impression like, right, us getting together, I always felt like second choice. And everyone else always kind of felt like I was your rebound, and like it took him a long time to get over those insecurities, and they're there. Like he's like, now with this whole Danny thing, it makes me feel like I'm 18-year-old again. Jeez, I couldn't say that. And it just makes me feel like I'm back to that cycle again. I'm just like, it's just reconfirming what people believe. So it is coming from a place of insecurity. But he kind of has a right to feel that way, because it's like the trust and bond has been broken. So it's like, I don't think there's an easy solution. Like I said, I feel complicated because I understand where Adam's coming from, but I also understand like it is a thing of you asking her to give up like ties to her best friend. But of course she's going to do it because she wants to fix things with you. But that also makes it's like he has every right to kind of demand stuff in certain regards. But I also feel like, you know that she's going to do it because she's going to do whatever it takes to make it up to you. Like, it's like, that's also the complicated thing of like how much, like, that's I think a very complicated conversation too, of like how far are you willing to go to make things up for someone. Like, should you have to apologize for an affair? Should you have to apologize for that for the rest of your life? I'm like, once again, not excusing it, but I don't know. I say that as someone who's been in a situation. I'll admit, when I was a teenager, I cheated on like a high school girlfriend of mine, and it's always been like one of the biggest regrets in my life. So maybe I'm coming at it from that perspective of like, you know, maybe I'm coming at it from Corinne's situation, so maybe that's why I'm a little more lenient on her because of my own personal, like, but I think but it's also like, right, I'm not in that situation in a respect of like, I'm not Adam. If I was in Adam's shoes, if I had ever been cheated on, or if I was in that exact same situation, would I be feeling the way I am, or would I feel exactly like Adam? And so that's why I'm like, it's complicated, because it's easy to be sympathetic, but just not empathetic, you know, because it's like, I'm not in Adam's shoes. I have been in Corinne's shoes, to not the exact circumstances, but to some extent. So I get that. So it does make, like I said, it makes my opinion a little biased because of my person, but I don't know, you know, once again, we're talking about fictional characters, but it's still like a real world situation that plenty of people find themselves in. So it's complicated. Once again, it's easy to have this perspective as a third party who has nothing to do with it. Like, you know, if this was a real life situation, would I feel the same way? Like, if these were friends of mine involved, because that's the thing of like, you know, if you're Corinne's friend, like, of course, like, you know, you have Sarah and AJ wanting things to work out, but it's like, if there's something that maybe it isn't just about closure with Danny, maybe there was something else that was missing in her relationship, like, you know, because it's an argument about like Alexis and William. It's like, well, I think them breaking up was probably for the better if she was feeling like there were certain things she wasn't getting out of a relationship. But it is a conversation of, if I talked about these things first, like, a lot of, you know, it is a two-way street of communication. Like, not everyone's communicating what's really going on, and maybe that makes all the difference. I don't know. You know, and someone could be like, oh, I have the wrong perspective on things, and that's perfectly fine. This is just my viewpoint, and I'm split from my viewpoint. Maybe it's a lot more black and white for some people, and that's fine, just because maybe your perspective, the way you view things, but just from my perspective, there's just so many shades of gray involved in this situation. So at the end of it, Corinne ends up choosing Adam, and she's like, you know, in a couple months, in a year, he'll realize that, you know, I am trying my hardest. But it's like, but that's also the thing too, of like, the trust has been broken. It is not easy to get, you know, trust back. And so who's to say he will, like, you know, even if you stay away from Sarah, like, you're living in Greylock, who Sarah's kind of one of the people involved in running the town. So there's going to be a constant reminder. It's like, so even if, I mean, it's like they have so many friends in common, like Grover and AJ. So it's like, what are you going to do? Spend the rest of your life like avoiding him? Because Adam eventually going to ask her to move. And that's what I'm saying. Like, up to what point is going to be too much where you're like, I'm sorry for what I did, but like you're asking for too much. But then it's going to be like, well, how can you tell me I'm ever asking for too much? It's about what I need to move forward. But it's also like, but I think that's also the thing too. It's like, it's not an I, it's a we. We are supposed to be moving forward. It shouldn't just be like you're moving forward and you're just kind of like begrudgingly like taking me along with you. Like I said, it's not easy. I'm getting too caught up in it, but I think it's such a fascinating and complicated thing. Like, I think that's just like how complex and complicated humans are. It represented in that storyline. I feel like, it's a sad thing that we are here, but obviously it's like, for storytelling purposes, it's like, ooh, it's a very compelling story because it's such a grounded human story, that like, it's a story that honestly anyone could find themselves into. It's not just exclusive to these fictional characters. It's like, there are plenty of humans who have been in this situation, humans who are currently going through this situation, people who might end up finding themselves in these very circumstances in the future. So that's why I'm like, it's such a human thing. And I don't know. I just think that's interesting. But Sarah having to lose her best friend, like, for who knows how long, And then on top of that, like, there's everything between her and Weston. She's obviously, like, the complication, like, right, he's putting me in this position where I have to like force like that. He's in the right, but also he is kind of using our relationship as a way to get to my dad, which she's like, I don't like the way he's going about it, but he is right. But even Paul's like, right, if it means getting the truth out there, doing the right thing, he's willing to, because his daughter showed him, like, no matter what the consequences are, like, it is always important to do the right thing. No matter what might befall him, if he ends up in jail or whatever, or whether, the CIA decide to throw him in a black, they said it in this, I always forget what the actual name for it is, when like the CIA puts you in a place and it's just like a dark pit. It's supposed to be a place like you disappear. A black site. Is that it? I can never remember. Like, they said it in this episode. I think that's it. I always forget the term. But regardless, he does agree to the article, and ultimately, Sarah does, Weston was even saying like, oh, it'd make for a better story. It'd make your dad more sympathetic if you went on record, which she was reluctant to, because it is the thing of like, right, you are the leader of this country. Did you let him in as his daughter, despite your complicated relationship, or did you let him in as the leader of Greylock? So she ends up kind of eventually going on record because she ended up talking to Maya, which we'll talk about that later. But it's the thing of, despite everything, he is her dad. And she even says, like, in this instance, I do admire him. I am proud to be his daughter, so. But despite all that, her and Weston have to break up because it's like, right, I can't, like, I care for you, but I care more about my country. And he's like, you should. And she's like, I care for you, but I care more about reporting the truth. And she's like, you should as well. So it is the thing of, we can't keep going the way we are. Like, me being a leader, you being a journalist, like, we can't keep our personal and our professional lives separate without them blending together, no matter how much both of them would hope that it would. So not only she's going through this breakup, she's going through everything with her, with Corinne. There's also the thing of like, cool, my mom's back, and also, she's making amends to me. Things with my dad were in a better spot, but also like, I don't know what's going to befall him. Like, is the government going to come raining down to grab him up for what he's done? She's also trying to be there for Danny, who, like, his mom came to him, and it's just like, he's like, you expect a sorry to be enough, I'm supposed to forgive you? She's like, no, there is no such thing as redemption for what I did. I was supposed to protect you, and I did the complete opposite. I hurt you, and nothing I ever can do will ever make that right. You don't even have to forgive me. You shouldn't forgive me. I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. All I can do is say I'm sorry, and be sorry for the rest of my life. I will always be sorry for it. That's all I can do. And he's like, is that it? And she leaves. Like, it's not a situation of like, oh, you have to forgive me. It's like, no, like, I have to make amends to you because I owe you that. Because that is the thing of like, right, you can make the argument like, the thing is that saying a sorry, you're not saying sorry for that person's benefit, it's for your own benefit. But it's also like, in this case, it is a thing of, I know you'll never forgive me, and that's okay. I will never forgive myself for what I did to you either. But it is a thing of, I owe you that. It's not like I'm doing this just for my sake. I'm not doing it for yours, because you deserve the apology for everything I've did to you. You deserve to hear those words come from me. Because she would always probably make excuses about why she did what she did. Before, like, when she went to Danny, she was like, talk to me, like, being forceful. And this time, she's just like, no, I'll say what I have to say. You don't have to forgive me. That's okay. And that sends Danny spiraling, and he ends up punching the glass in the mirror in his window. And then he goes over to Sarah. It's like, it's not fair. It's like the scars, the broken bones. The fact is, she gets to just, after 20 years of being the way she is, all she has to do is, I go to a retreat for a few weeks and come back. And all of a sudden, like, I'm sure she's okay. She's able to move forward. When am I going to be okay? When do I get to be fixed? When do I get to move on with my life? Because he's like, I'm caught with these nightmares constantly, that the fact of the matter is, a loud noise sends me spiraling. It's like, and it's heartbreaking, and him breaking down like that in front of Sarah and her holding him. It's like, that's also a thing too. Like, her brother's in a very fragile state right now too. So of course she's going to even yeah, her brother can be a douchebag, but it's still, he's her brother. She loves him, and understanding what he's been through, and just, once again, she chalked up what happened between him and Corinne as just, it was a mistake, even though there was a lot more to it. Maybe she knew that it was, but she didn't want to acknowledge it. I don't know, but I think in that moment, I don't know. I just, that was just like a heartbreaking moment of just like, when am I going to be okay? When am I going to get fixed? I was like, oh, dude, you feel so bad for Danny, Other than that, there's also, since I brought up earlier, is Maya's circumstances. Her mom is up for parole hearing, and now the question is she going to speak at the parole hearing? She has reservations about doing it, because she's like, what if I say the wrong thing? I could be the contributing factor that can make it so that my mom either gets released or she goes to jail, which Luis is like, there are other contributing factors. Like, no matter what you do, I got your back if you decide to speak on it. But then Grover brings up later on, it's like, you have anxiety about it because you're worried. And, even Bella brought it up, right? If your mom gets out of jail, like, you'll go back to LA, right? You won't stay in Greylock, will you? Not unless it's a circumstance that she ends up moving to Greylock, but because of her parole, most likely it's like, no, you're probably not allowed. I mean, I'm sure you're not allowed to leave the state type of situation. I would assume not. I'm not well versed in all like parole stuff, but I think you're not allowed to like leave the state. You have to stay where you are. So it might be a situation where like Maya would have to go back and forth, but also like maybe it's like, I need to go back to LA and be with my mom. She needs me more. But it's also like, right, you're entitled to live your life too. But it's it's like, she's my mom, so I got to take care of her. And that's, ultimately, the whole point I was going on is like Grover being like, she's feeling your anxiety because you're scared that like, right, if she goes, like, she might not come back. But, and he lets her know, like, he's like, right, like, I don't want you to make any decisions, because she had ultimately decided not to go to parole hearing. I was hoping, she was like, he was saying, like, I hope like, no matter, even if I don't want you to not go for my sake. If this is what you need to do and you want to do it, then please, I will support you all the way. And she's like, I know I've got your support. I know you've got my back. But for her, I'm not going for my own reasons. And that's because when it comes to her mom, there were good days, like mom helping with homework and stuff like that, being a mom. But then there were bad days where there was no food in the fridge for like a week. Her and her boyfriend having arguments. It's like, there's good and bad, and she's scared that, like, yes, I can mention the good and that'll help my mom, but eventually, digging deep enough, they'll dig into like some of the bad. I mean, hell, Louise dug up some of the bad of like, right, that Maya found out about like her mom, like when she was 5 years, that stuff about her, like her mom, like trying to like leave her and give her away, like that whole thing probably would come up as well. But I'm surprised Maya didn't bring that up, but I think she kind of dealt with that when that knowledge came up. But it's like, right, regardless of anything, your mom was still in your life afterwards. I mean, that speaks volumes, because, hell, she'd even recently sent her a card, and that, obviously that Paul situation gave her a different perspective on things when, the whole conversation about like, oh, your mom wants to know you're happy and that you have moved on. But it is a thing of, there's good and bad, and if I mention the bad, like, I might be ruining everything for my mom, so what do I do? And that was the complicated thing of like she didn't know what to do in those circumstances. So she went to Sarah saying like, you're official, maybe you can go in my regard. But it's like, no, you have to be the one to do it. You're the one that knows your mom. Good and bad and all you can do is speak your truth, you know, and make them realize that, you know, because she was like, yeah, 9 out of 10 days, my mom's great. My mom, there's good. But that 10th day is what they're going to ask about. And it's like, all you can do is speak your truth. And it is a circumstance of, you tell them that, yes, they're good and bad, but despite everything, she's still your mom and you love her. And that's what matters the most, that despite the bad days, there were good days. And that's what should also matter. You know, that's actually, that conversation with Maya is what sparked her to go on the record and speak on her dad's behalf. But she also understands, like, having a very complicated relationship with a parent. Obviously, she's, as an adult, she's still processing and dealing with that, like, with her father in her life. But I thought was interesting is, like, you know, at the end of the day, she's like, thanks, Sarah. And she's like, Sarah? It's like, well, you're not a teacher anymore, so we decided not to call you Miss Cooper anymore. It's like, okay, you little rascals. She's still your elder. But I'm also like, yeah, I mean, especially considering, like, you're on a council with her, it makes sense. Like, you are kind of equals in that regard. She might be older than you, but it's still like, yeah, we are colleagues, so it kind of makes sense in that regard. I also love, like, they were doing that whole play situation, and, like, Corinne's still doing all she's doing, like, so she had a super pessimistic point of view with the whole Romeo and Juliet thing, which I'm like, there's not going to be a part, you do know, like, Bella's in a relationship right now, young love and everything, so you having the very pessimistic point of view could tamper with that a little bit. But even Maya being like, sheesh, and she's like, yeah, sorry, because like the whole thing with Maya and Bella actually hit Corinne, because it's like, right, those are best friends loving each other. It's like, it reminded her of, you know, her and Sarah, like Sarah being there, like when she had was kind of in her lowest low, and it's like, you're telling me to give up one of the people I cherish who was there for me in a very bad time. And it's just, like I said, I won't talk on that anymore, but obviously it's complicated. I also love that obviously Grover couldn't keep his dog, his new buddy, at his apartment, and so he asked AJ to look after him, but AJ's like, nah, because he ended up tearing my place apart and everything. But also it's like, instead of living in an apartment forever, shouldn't you staying in a motel or whatever forever? Like, it was only meant to be temporary. Like, you know, for him, it's like finding a new home. Like, he built that home with patience, so going anywhere else just won't stack up. And for AJ, it's like, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to take away from the fact is that you and Patience built, like, there was a home you built with your own hands for Patience, but that doesn't mean you should be living on motels, like, for the rest of your life. And so he does take that to heart. And so it's like, right, it's like the house isn't really mine, it's Tito's, but you know, he finally took that step forward, you know, and I really appreciate that with Grover's story. We are seeing him slowly but surely, like, find his way forward. I am thinking way ahead now, but I am like, I mean, well, I don't know if he's ready to be in a relationship right now. Obviously, the whole Weston thing, there was jealousy there. But obviously, I don't think he's ready for, like, things between him and Sarah to get to that point. Because there's still that awkwardness of, like, they haven't been in as many scenes together, Grover and her. They have, but it's still that weird thing of, like, right, are we good? It's like, right, you were best friends that turned into something more for a little bit, so that could definitely, that, you know, it's always a danger of, like, dating your best friend, of, like, yeah, that could, like, ruin, like, because if we break up, like, there's no way we can go back being best friends. Some people can make it work. I personally have never had any good luck of staying friends with exes for different reasons, just, like, we just fell apart, lost communication. Other cases, just, like, yeah, just, there's too much there. Type of, too much baggage there in certain regards. Not just on their part, but my part, too. It's a whole thing. But, a lot of interesting things. I'm really curious to see where things take us going forward. There's only 2 episodes left this season, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what goes down next episode, and ultimately where that will end up taking us in the season finale. But regardless, to the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.